Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're out here with Shadowfax, tequila and vodka, Arwen, and whiskey. We're out here and the chickens are in the barn because it's wet and mucky today. It snowed this morning. That was fun. Luckily, it is not snowing now and it is warm enough that it melted. Also, that's going to be lovely when you eat that. Awesome. Dogs eat things. Good. Anyway, don't ask me what Arwen's doing. Today I wanted to start talking about housing and fencing. So today's video is just going to be a brief overview of housing and fencing you might want to think about before you get your mini horse. There he goes. Yes, it's very, very mucky. We actually had a lot of rain and then it snowed. But it almost doesn't matter because he was dirty anyway. And she's just going to rub her head on the fence. Anyway, this is about him, not her. So anyway, housing and fencing. You want to have at least the basics of housing and fencing in place before you buy your pony. Because you don't want to bring a pony home and go, oh geez, I have nowhere to put him. He's too big for a dog kennel. So he does need some kind of yard and he does need some kind of shelter. So I am going to do more in-depth videos on shelter and fencing starting next week. But this week I just want to do a very basic overview. So let's talk shelters. So mini horses are incredibly hardy and they actually do best outside. Okay, they do best if they are not stalled. So in general, you should not stall your mini horse at least for prolonged periods. I know there are exceptions to this. So if you have a mini horse that is ill or injured, you may have to stall them. If you live in an area where there's a lot of predators, you might have to stall them at night just because you want them to be safe. There are a number of reasons why you might need to stall your miniature horse, but you do not need to stall him on just a general basis. Mini horses do very, very well outside in the elements. In fact, they tend to be a lot healthier. Ignore the barrels. I don't even know why there are barrels in there. There weren't, and now there are, and he's just like rolling them around because it's funny. I don't know. We're going to ignore the barrels for now. We're going to take them out of there because it's crazy, and tequila is in the pile of junk with a cat. We're going to clean up the junk too, I swear. It's just, it's spring and it keeps snowing. Anyway, so they should not generally be stalled. Is the general rule. So there are certainly exceptions to that because someone's going to say, well, I have to stall my pony at night because we have wolves. Yeah, then you probably need to stall your pony at night. We don't have those issues. We do not typically have to stall our guy at night because we don't have a lot of predators because we have the livestock guardian dogs. Predators are not even going to be a thing with these two dogs behind me. The dogs are on the septic field. That's fantastic. So, yes, you might have to stall, but in general, mini horses do better if they are not stalled. So, they don't need fancy barns or top-of-the-line facilities. Miniature horses, unlike sometimes their larger counterparts, are marvelously uncomplicated when it comes to housing. They can do with a small lean-to as long as they have shelter from the sun, the wind, the rain, and the snow. You do need to have them get out of the elements if they need to, but they can do with a 3-sided lean-to. I'm not kidding. Now, obviously, this is a shed that was on the property when we moved here, and that shed is now basically our mini barn. So the chickens are in there, and the goat goes in there. The goat's right here. Hi, baby. You gonna eat my papers? Yeah. But this is my goat. Nom, nom, nom. But yeah, so the goat goes in there, the chickens are in there. When our turkeys hatch, our turkeys will be in there. And the only things that aren't in there are the quail and the rabbits. They are housed separately because quail don't free range well. They take off, and neither do rabbits. So they are kept separately over that way. But that's what we use for a barn. It is marvelously uncomplicated. They are marvelously uncomplicated, at least as far as housing goes. You can use a lean-to, a 3-sided lean-to, as long as they can get out of the elements. They don't like standing around in the rain, except he likes standing around in the rain. But in general, they need a way to get out of the rain. So you want to make sure they can get out of the wind, because wind sucks. All of us think wind sucks. Every single one of us. She's going to go see what Shadowfax is doing. What are you doing? Are we playing with the barrels again? Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't film earlier when all of them were rolling the barrels around. It was actually really funny, but I didn't have my phone. But anyway, that's not the point. So yes, they do need shelter. So if you are buying property with the intention of having a mini horse, or if you own property that has housing for horses already, you need to evaluate that property and that housing and the fencing, because is that your horsey? Good, we're all going to be so muddy. But you do need to evaluate the housing and the fencing situation that might have been built for larger horses, because it's not the same for little ones. Big game! Good boy. Do you like playing games? Are you a good boy to play games with? Yeah, and Whiskey's a good dog too. Hi. Hi, Whiskey. Hi, Shadowfax. Hi. Yeah, everybody's playing games. Games on camera. Anyway, so yes, if you do have property and you already have big horses, or maybe you've bought property that used to have big horses on it, you need to evaluate it for its suitability for a miniature horse, because they're not the same. Miniature horses are they're called fence crawlers for a reason. They can escape stalls and pens like you wouldn't believe. Doggies. Chompy, chompy. Dogs are playing. So they can escape, and you wouldn't think they could, and they'll find a way out. So when you're looking at fencing, just because the fencing will keep in, a 16-hand horse, kisses on the camera, thank you very much. But just because that fencing you have will keep in a 16-hand horse, it probably won't keep in your little 30-inch mini horse. Okay, they can get out, and it's fantastic and annoying. So you're going to have to evaluate. Are you scratching her? Does she need scratches on the back? Yeah. Everybody needs scratches on the back when they can't reach their backs. Yeah. Anyway, dogs. Game on, puppy dogs. Game on, puppy dogs. Yeah. Dogs like to play. Right, Shadowfax? Dogs like to play. Anyway, you do want to evaluate your housing and your fencing to make sure it's suitable for a miniature horse and not just for a large horse, because they will get out. So a lot of times the fencing panels that we all use for the bigger horses, a lot of times those fencing panels are simply not suitable, because mini horses can get through them, or they can get stuck in them. There goes another dog. So a lot of the times, miniature horses will escape through things that were designed for larger horses. So really take a careful look, especially if you already own larger horses and you're going to introduce a miniature horse, because it is devilishly difficult sometimes to spot the differences in the fencing needs, because you'll think, oh, if it'll keep in my big guys, it'll keep in my little guy, and then you come home from work and your little guy's romping all over the yard. So you definitely need to take into account the fact that, yeah, scratch your head, buddy. Good job. Scratch that head. Scratch that head. Scratch that head. Good job, scratch that head. But you definitely want to take into account the fact that the miniature horse can get out of smaller spaces. They're also harder to contain with electric wire, fair warning. Can you contain them with electric wire? Sure, but their hides are devilishly tough. Okay, so a lot of times your miniature horse will blow through electric fencing that will contain your larger horses. So just be careful when you're evaluating fencing, because what works for a larger horse may not work for a smaller one. The other thing to do before you get a mini horse, especially if you haven't owned another horse, double check that your property is zoned for horses. In most areas, your miniature horses are governed the same way large horses are. So generally, in most areas, if you can't have a large horse on your property, you can't have a miniature horse. So even though their needs are very different and you can keep a miniature horse on much less property, generally, if your municipal or county rules say that you need to have let's say 5 acres, right? You need 5 acres for your miniature horse. Your large horse, you'll still need 5 acres for your mini horse. That tends to be a general rule of thumb when it comes to county rules. Okay, you just want to make sure that you are okay in that regards. So just double check. Sorry, I'm just watching the dogs. I don't know what they're doing. They're doing something weird. Anyway, so you just want to make sure that you are allowed to have a miniature horse. Generally, if you can't have a big horse, you can't have a little one. So just double check that. Make sure you can have what you think you can have. Sorry about that. I dropped my camera in the mud and had to go clean it off. So just one last thing about getting your mini horse and housing him. Just going to move over here. Where you going? Anyway, so just one last thing about you getting your mini horse. If you are going to board him instead of housing him on your own property, that's totally fine, totally legitimate. A lot of us do that. A lot of people do that. Make sure you know where you are going to board him before you get him. Okay? Because here's the problem. A lot of places are not set up for a miniature horse. A lot of stables are set up only for your standard size horses, so they don't take miniature horses. So don't assume that just because you have a stable down the road that you'll be able to stable your horse there, because miniature horses are different when it comes to housing. So you'll definitely need to make sure that you're using a stable that can accommodate a miniature horse, because it's actually not all that common. A lot of places do not have the proper fencing to contain your miniature horse. Okay, so just if you are going to board your horse because you don't want them or are unable to house them at your own property, that's legitimate. A lot of people board their horses. Just make sure you have a place lined up before you buy said miniature horse. Okay, it is really important that you have somewhere already lined up. Anyway, that is about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. I hope that was a little bit helpful to you. We will talk more in depth about the types of fencing next week, and then we'll go on to talk about shelter probably a couple weeks later. But that's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. There's your cat. We'll see you tomorrow.